What's good, everyone? This is Mikerotastraphy here, and today I want to give you another Marvel Rivals news guide. Last week, I opened up the discussion about the whole civil war between the supports and DPS players and also tanks, all because of some comments that Necros has made, and it just kind of sparked fuel to the fire that was already there between the three different roles. I gave my 2 cents on last week's news video, so if you want to hear my intake on how we could better handle that type of issue, I definitely suggest checking out that video. I'll leave the link to that in the description below. But this week I want to talk about news updates that happened during this week in Marvel Rivals in terms of news that got announced and also what's to come and also what potentially got leaked that seems to be more concrete that I should be safe to start hinting and talking about today. What I'm getting at, I'll start with the leaks. In the announcement, Ultron is set in stone to be released later on in May. And as predicted, he is going to be a flyer hero. I'm going by an article that MarvelRivals.gg made about him, so I'm going off of the info that they wrote about Ultron. But as predicted and as suggested, he is going to be a flyer through one of his abilities where he kind of shifts or kind of does a small dash and then he starts flying. You do free flight mode, which is kind of cool because he would technically be the first strategist, first support hero that would be able to do that. So that's actually kind of nice. Also, based on what they wrote about Ultron and his kit, it seems like his healing capabilities comes from his abilities, not from his primary fire. It's just a standard beam attack. Kind of sounds similar to what Emma Frost does. You aim it with your cursor and it just does continuous damage. Nothing special about that, but it's okay. We won't know how strong that beam is until he officially launches and, when we get some behind the scene playtests from other streamers before he drops. But that's his primary fire. One of his abilities, though, will allow him to heal his allies. It's called Imperative Patch. Basically, sounds like you summon a drone. It latches onto that primary hero, and then allies around that primary hero gets dot over time healing. But the hero that has that Imperative Patch buff gets additional healing on top of that. So that's actually kind of nice. A little bit unique and different on how you can control the healing in certain areas without actively trying to heal them. So I kind of like that aspect. And then he has another ability called Imperative Wall that kind of gives bonus health to him and the person who has that Imperative Patch buff. So that's kind of nice for if you're trying to defend a point, defending a chokehold, whatever. In a team fight, it's kind of nice to give yourself and other people bonus health that is not from an ultimate. So it kind of makes it easier to kind of like maintain that level of sturdiness and mitigation. But as usual, we won't know what the numbers will be until he drops. But that's actually kind of nice to know on paper that is something that he can do. And his ultimate sounds like he does his unique thing where he sends out a lot of Ultron drones that either will damage or heal your allies and will damage enemies throughout a set duration. So that's kind of nice where he can just sends out all of his bots to do his bidding to just create a lot of chaos while providing a level of sustainability to yourself with a lot of healing and sounds like a lot of damage too. I think he's going to be like a high damage, high healing type of support hero. So I'm definitely really curious to see how his kit is really going to get fleshed out when he is launched. And I can totally understand why everyone is excited for the hype for Ultron, even myself. But that's the first part that got announced earlier this week. Another thing is that got announced that unfortunately put some players on edge is the announcement of Chrono tokens, but in the form of a Chrono token shield. So if you haven't noticed, if you don't play ranked, every time you lose 4 times, doesn't have to be a row, but just 4 times in ranked competitive matches, you get a Chrono shield for free. And it basically says next time you lose, you basically don't lose no points, and then the shield breaks. But what they did is they actually gave you additional shields that you can use anytime you want. So it makes it easier for, I guess, new players and newbies and beginners to kind of rank up faster without the worry of losing so much points all the time. But the reason why it kind of created an uproar within the gaming community is because, one, seems that people who are naturally Smurfs and just created new accounts to stay low on the elo and just smurf on new beginner and easier players, well, then now they have a lot easier of a reason to retain their ranks and continuously smurfing other people. Also, on top of that, if a lot of beginner players really opt into this type of a token shield to protect themselves from losing rank all the time, and especially if they want to get that exclusive seasonal skin once they reach gold rank, then it kind of builds more incentive for the beginner and the noob community to want to have this type of token. But a lot of players are speculating that it might become a pay to play type of item later on. So yeah, even though this only goes up to gold rank, it still raises concern because some gamers think that this item shouldn't just exist, period, and it just invites other exploitive monetization attempts. For me personally, I feel like this is just all part of a big numbers game, because one of the things they're trying to battle against with this type of token is to retain community roster of how many players are actively playing this game month over month. Obviously, it's no surprise, just like every other game, the honeymoon phase is over, and I think we lost well over half of our base community compared to season 0 of Marvel Rivals. And I think we just dipped below the 60,000 active user number count, which is still high, but in the grand scheme of things, it's very low. But one of the things that I would think the developers are trying to do to combat this, to retain the active players, and especially the new players and the beginner players, is giving them an incentive to stay playing competitively without losing so much points by giving them a bone, giving them a competitive Chrono Shield token. And I think by doing so, it will soften the blow. If they lose a match, they can just pop the token, not lose so much points in that game. They can jump into the next match, hoping that they'll win, which then will keep the lower elo player community happy because they have more chances to climb up in ranks. I guess, in a sense, that's not much of an issue in my part because it would only inflate the first few elos. So, in my opinion, the first few ranks are going to be super inflated, but once you hit platinum, diamond, grand, well, then that would be super skinned out and thin to the true player base who definitely deserves those titles. Now, yeah, would it causes concerns for them to exploit players to eventually have these items only be pay to get? Maybe, but for a player like myself who doesn't get stuck in gold rank, I don't see much of an issue and it wouldn't faze me at all. But honestly, I think this would really make players realize how good they are at the game if they psychologically need to feel like they need to buy this token in order to remain competitive. And if you feel like you need to buy this in order to remain in gold rank, then it's really not a issue with the developers, it's an issue with the players themselves, because it just goes to show they're just not good enough and they just need to get better, and they can only get better by getting practice. So I think this is really going to shed light on a skill issue with the player base, in my opinion. Now, I'm that curiosity type of guy that wants to see this whole event unfold and really see how this Chrono Shield will affect the community in the long run. But what do you think? Leave your comments down below. I want to hear your thoughts about this because, like I said, it definitely left a lot of players a sour taste in their mouth. So I want to know what you guys think. If the developers are doing a good job on issuing this new token as an item for low elo players. Honestly, I think at the end of the week, I believe that them hinting at the announcement of Ultron later on this season for us to get an exact date on when he was going to be released is definitely a nice way to kind of draw attention again back into the community, while also at the same time issuing this Chrono Shield token kind of gives returning new players or beginner players who probably stopped playing a little while ago a nice incentive of playing this game again because a new character is dropping and he's very popular, but also kind of learning and hearing the news that, oh, I can start playing again and I can use an item to protect my rank. I think that's what they're going for. I think that's why they dropped these two news pieces in the same week. I think it's all part of our numbers game at the end of the day, because as fun as this game is, they do need to find ways to make money. And fine, I'll get it. I can understand that from a business perspective. So I want to see how this plays out, because at the end of the day, if you feel like this is a bad idea, well, you don't need to buy it if they ever do issue a bundle pack with Chrono Shield tokens in the future, because you know what you need to do to get better. But for them to toss the beginner community a bone, well, let them duke it out in the lower elos. If you're a good enough player like you say you are, then it shouldn't be much of an issue for you to climb yourself out of gold rank and into platinum and into diamond and eventually grandmaster. So let me know your thoughts down below. Leave a comment. If you want to stay up to date on any other future updates from Marvel Rivals, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It definitely helps me out with the YouTube algorithm to push these videos out to other Marvel Rival fans. And in the meantime, you can check out my guide videos on certain characters in the playlist at the end of this card. And you can also check out my YouTube shorts if you want a quick laugh on some of the memes I made, and also some cool gameplay videos on my own personal road to rank journey. This is Mikerotastraphy, and I'll catch you guys later.